Hair and makeup team. My hair and makeup team just got done, Matt. Sorry about that.
Looking good, Roderick. Looking good.
Thank you, sir.
And
Thank you.
Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson. Hello. Good morning, Councilwoman.
Greetings and good morning. How are you?
Great. So pleased to have you with us this morning.
Oh, thank you for having me.
All right, Roderick, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Good morning, Councilwoman Kathy Gilmore Richardson. Thank you and welcome back to Coffee Talk. It's a pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on what has turned out to be a really somber morning for a number of reasons now, but also a very busy morning for us as we have the funeral this morning for the police officer we lost last week at the Philadelphia airport. And just so many other things going on. I see a few people with Phillies things on, and my heart is with all of you. And I pray that we win tonight and advance to the World Series. And just, in generally around the world, it's so much happening. And then, of course, for us, it's election time as well. So I thank you for this opportunity to talk with you this morning and look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Again, so we'll jump right in. Councilwoman Richardson. For those on the call here who aren't familiar with you, I'd like to just start with you giving us a background into your entry into city council, the government, where you grew up, and where do you call home in the city of Philadelphia today?
Great. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. I'm Catherine Gilmore Richardson, currently serving my first term as a member of Philadelphia City Council. And I came to this term by way of Blondell Reynolds Brown, who I met when I was 15 years old, when she had just been elected to Philadelphia City Council and not yet sworn in. She had come to our high school to talk about her career in service and her impending career in Philadelphia City Council. And I was very interested in her story. And so I went home, I went on my typewriter because we were the last family with the typewriter. My parents were still ordering encyclopedia sets. And I wrote her a letter and delivered it to her house. And from there started a 24 plus year relationship that we still enjoy today, where I was able to have a front row seat to her life as a legislator in Philadelphia by starting as an intern and a volunteer when I was 15 years old in her office. And then after high school graduation, college graduation, and grad school graduation, starting in her office as a constituent services representative, and really having the opportunity to work in every position one can hold as a staffer in Philadelphia City Council. I was actually a legislative aide for 5 years, where I worked on nothing but legislation, crafting and drafting legislation, from idea to actually drafting the legislation from the code, and then to hearing phase, passage, and then regulation and implementation. And I also had the opportunity to serve as her staff director and chief of staff for about another 5 years. And so when the councilwoman decided not to seek re-election, my phone started ringing off the hook. And everyone said, Kathy, you have to run. And I said, me? And they said, yes, you have to run. And I really looked around, not only at the field, but where we were as a city. And I knew that I had the ability to help people navigate city government, to make it work for them, to ensure that we're looking at the most pressing issues in our city and take them piece by piece, challenge by challenge, and attack those challenges and issues, and really be able to bring my full experience, not just as a staffer in council, but as a former teacher in Philadelphia's public school system, as a former healthcare worker, working at the University of Pennsylvania Health System. I knew I could bring the totality of that experience to city government. And with 14 weeks left until Election Day in 2019, decided to resign from my position as chief of staff in city council and run for Philadelphia City Council at large. And so grateful that we were successful, and I've enjoyed this first term, which has really gone by so quickly. And I've called us the COVID council members because we were sworn in January 6th of 2020, and literally 2 months later, We were facing a global pandemic, unlike anything we had ever seen before, and had to adjust to not only becoming a council member, but doing that virtually. And so I call our freshman class the COVID council members, and we have tried at every turn to work very hard to continue to provide service across the city of Philadelphia, even though we were faced with a number of challenges from COVID to civil unrest and everything else in between. But to answer your question, I was born and raised here in Philadelphia, technically born in South Philadelphia, where I was given up for adoption at birth to my parents who worked at Pennsylvania Hospital, and they raised me in the Winfield section of Philadelphia. My dad was from Lower Merion, my mom was from North Philly, so I guess Winfield was a happy medium. I was able to go to the best public schools here in Philadelphia by way of Gompers, Masterman, and the Philadelphia High School for Girls. Earned a bachelor's and a master's degree from Westchester University, and also a certificate from the campaign school at Yale University. And I now live in Winfield with my family, my husband David, and our 3 children who all attend public school. And so I'm Philly, through and through. And I love this city. Know that we have so much to offer, which is why so many millennials are choosing to come here and stay here. And which is why so many people are looking at Philadelphia as their city of choice. And I just hope to be able to do all that I can to ensure that all of us feel that way about our city and are able to experience the best of what Philadelphia has to offer. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that even though this is my first term, I am technically a Democratic nominee for City Council at large, and will be on the ballot November 7th, and prayerfully will be successful for a second term, which will begin January 2nd of 2024.
Awesome. That is a wealth of information, and thank you. But now I have to give you the South Philadelphia test. Cheesesteak or hoagie?
I have to say cheesesteak, actually.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And so, as an at-large council person, can you compare for those of us who been on the space who aren't familiar and maybe know the technical differences? Can you compare an at-large council person versus a district council person, and talk about the features and benefits to those positions, if you can?
Sure. Well, I'm sure we all know there's 17 members of Philadelphia City Council, 10 are district, meaning they represent a certain geographical area of the city of approximately 160,000, give or take a few thousand on either side, constituents. And there are 7 at-large members, meaning we represent the entire city of Philadelphia, all 142.59 plus square miles, every single person, all 1.59 million people. And so the technical difference, I would say, with at-large versus being a district member is that district members enjoy the opportunity to work on zoning issues, which I'm sure is very important to the membership here at GPAR, and really if there's a project that's not by right, and make the determination relative to, what the next zoning designation would be. And so one of the biggest differences is that typically at-large members, we do not work on zoning legislation. Now, I will, mention that I've done 2 zoning bills, 2 citywide zoning bills since being in office. One has been around we call it the tree bill, and the other one is relative to addressing drug paraphernalia stores. We've had a proliferation of these stores pop up since the pandemic, coming into the city saying that they're going to be a grocery or convenience store, but really they're operating just as a smoke shop and selling nothing but drug paraphernalia. And we're not saying that you can't do that, but what we are saying is that can you please go through the zoning process to get a variance and go through the registered community organization to ensure that that is the type of business they want in their community. And I'll give you an example. In my community, in a matter of 6 months, we've had about 6 of those stores come into a 2-block radius. Right. And so that was just an issue that we wanted to address. So I've done sort of at-large citywide zoning legislation, but typically at-large members, we don't do legislation. We don't handle sort of the day-to-day zoning issues in a district. We can focus more as at-large members more on overarching issues that are facing the city versus district-specific issues that are happening in certain areas. District council members are experts in their areas. They know every corner of their district. They know their people. They know what's happening on the ground and in their communities. And, we usually look to them to tell us what's, happening in their neighborhoods. And so that's the biggest difference. Our home rule charter states that of the 7 at-large members, 2 must be of a minority party. It doesn't say which one. And so 5 of us are of the majority party, 2 are of a minority party, and that comprises the 7 at-large members of Philadelphia City Council.
Thank you. Thank you. And as you led off this morning, we are having the services for our slain officer from about a week or so ago at the airport, and thank you for touching on that this morning. I drove through there, the parkway, and it's just an amazing sea of blue, and it's really nice to see the city and the surrounding communities come out and pay their respects to the officer. That being said, and in that space, one of the major issues in the city of Philadelphia, if you go by the media, is the gun violence and public safety issues, and the city of Philadelphia is just a tough place to live, work, and play. I don't see that being the case. And can you talk about what you're doing specifically citywide to improve just the PR, the actual public safety legislations, and how do you like to see the city and the next administration handle this with a new police chief coming into the city? How would you like to see that take shape over the next 4 years?
Sure. Well, first I must say that based on the data that has been shared with us from the Philadelphia Police Department recently, that overall some crime areas are down upwards to 20%. Murders are down 20%. It ebbs and flows, as we know. But I know that this council has worked diligently to increase spending related to public safety and quality of life issues. That is our primary responsibility per the charter. We appropriate funds, and I call it we legislate and we appropriate. And the administration executes those programs and enforces those laws. And so, what I am looking forward to in the upcoming term is the ability to work together effectively and have the lines of communication open with the upcoming administration and members of council to effectively enforce some of the regulations that are already on the books and those that have been added. I'll talk specifically about some of the things that I've worked on since this term that I think are important. As a working mother, the curfew was important to me, to make a uniform curfew for young people in the city of Philadelphia, because we found, particularly during the pandemic and after, because everybody was virtual, right? All the young people were virtual. And so we found the need to ensure that not only was a uniform curfew in place that was easy to understand for young people and for their families, it's easier to enforce for the police department. What was happening was previously the curfew was a different time based on your age. If you were under 13, if you were 14 to 15, if you were 16 or 17, it was a different time. If it was a weekday versus weekend, it was a different time. We just wanted to make it a uniform curfew all year round so that it's easier to understand and easier for the police department to enforce. But in addition to that, we opened community evening resource centers across the entire city of Philadelphia for young people to have a safe space to go to from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single day. The centers did not exist before I came in office. And we did have a version of these centers under the street administration, and they were called curfew centers, and they went away. And so we brought back a different version of those curfew centers. We now call them community evening resource centers. 6 of them are open currently. My goal is to have 7 total, because in talking with the police department, we know that if they pick up a child in Germantown, it's unrealistic to expect them to take that young person, from Germantown to South Philly, as an example. And so we have locations in South Philly, We have a location in West/Southwest Philly, a location in North Philly, a location in Northwest Philadelphia. Thank you, Taylor, for linking the link. We have a location in 2 locations in East Division, which is over in the Frankfurt, Kensington, lower Northeast area. And my goal is to open the last center in the far Northeast. Because when I was running for office in 2019, I remember going around in the Northeast, and everyone in the Northeast said, that's great, you're running for office and you're citywide, but don't forget about the Northeast. And so in everything that I do, I always try to make sure that we have adequate coverage citywide and ensure that the Northeast is represented in that as well. And so my last goal is to have a center open up in the far Northeast, which will be primarily either in the 10th Council District or the upper parts of the 6th. And once that's done, we'll have coverage in every single area. We now have a CERC center, we call them CERCs, in each police division. All 6 of our police divisions, we do have a CERC, but I just want to ensure that we have adequate coverage in the Northeast because the territory is so large. In addition to that, I talked about the drug paraphernalia bill that I've worked on that would provide for a process to open a store that sells nothing but drug paraphernalia, because we found that of these stores that are opening, a number of them, there's so much crime and or criminal activity happening around these locations. And so we have worked to ensure that they have the proper license in it and give people the opportunity to come into compliance, you know, if they really just don't know or understand the process. But if they are still breaking the rules and not coming into compliance, you know, after the city seeks to educate them about the process, then unfortunately we do have to shut them down. And so we're going to continue to work on that legislation and strengthen the nuisance abatement process part of that bill. I introduced that bill this September. And so we're hoping to get that passed before December, because we know whatever is not passed by December that's currently on the legislative calendar, it dies on the calendar. Okay. And so everything that's not addressed by December 14th session and not passed by that session, it will die on the calendar and will need to be reintroduced in the new term. In addition to that, we have had what we call some enforcement walks around the drug paraphernalia bill, and we'll continue those probably in the next term. One other bill I just want to mention, because I think it helps young people and sort of addresses some of the challenges that I've heard as we visited different places across the city, is that a number of the young people say, we would like an opportunity. We need a job. You know, do you have a job for me? I hear that so much all over the city and everywhere we go. And so we work to ensure that we've expanded the definitions of some of the city jobs so that they pair with career and technical education graduates in the city. Also, the career and technical education bill that I had passed council and was approved by the voters. And so now we have a 5-point preference for all the young people who graduate from career and technical education programs and apply for city employment within their first 3 years after graduation. And that will help us to address our city workforce crisis. We are in a workforce crisis. 1 in every 5 of our city positions is currently vacant. And that is, you know, even more so the case in the Philadelphia Police Department, where we are down significantly. And we'll need to do a lot to really bring back the police force to, you know, its full complement. And so I'll continue to work on addressing our workforce crisis. Council President Clark appointed me to City Council Special Committee on Municipal Retention and Hiring, and we've had some good wins there, including expanded paid parental leave, and expanding and improving some of the recruitment activity, particularly within the police department and other areas. And so we're going to continue to work on that work as well. And then obviously, this may be important to this group, we have created the city's first apprenticeship guidebook, which is a full compilation of all the pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs in the construction trades. And we'll continue to work on our Labor Friday programs, which simulcast to classrooms across the city of Philadelphia and others who may be interested in careers in the trades. And so that work will continue. And I hope that you all find that beneficial and helpful to the work that some of you have to do.
No, that is great information, Councilwoman. And also in that space where you talk about the young folks asking for opportunities and jobs, right? So I'd like to pivot. The city of Philadelphia is seeing a major and robust shift in the life science space with Sparks and the Bud Center up um, in I believe it's Allegheny or Huntington Park.
Right.
It's and I'm going to venture to say there's some public-private partnerships when these companies come with the developers and the development. Are there conversations? And so when we talk about employment, you know, the medium living wage salary is $60,000, and we have an income level that's below that here in the city of Philadelphia, being one of the largest cities of poverty in the nation. Are there conversations at a high level where the city administration is partnered via internships with these major life science companies that are coming? So, you know, we have the Navy Yard, you know, the president was here talking about his energy bill and you know, just coming to the city a week or so ago. We have Sparks. We have some amazing developments at the Navy Yard with Bud. So when we talk about that help, you know, those internships with those life sciences and that health science space may help to serve to increase the income levels for those constituents. And then also, you know, it creates jobs, it creates housing, it creates the tax base that the city needs to be lively and robust. So can you speak to that in any way, and just your thoughts around those major companies coming in and providing those internships for our youth?
Huge. It's huge. And it's something that we've been working on. And in fact, I am a part of the committee that meets at one of the life sciences buildings in University City. My team is represented at every single meeting, and we're in conversation with not only the companies that are here, but those who are thinking of making Philadelphia a home around ensuring that there's a pipeline or a pathway for our young people and those who want to reskill and upskill to get into those jobs and into those positions. And so that has been a part of the conversation. We are actually working with the district to realign some of the career and technical education programs so they fit with some of the life sciences programs and industries that we have here. And so we're going to continue to do that work. And we've worked with PhilaWorks to also work on the sort of skill building component of this, because some of the jobs do not require a college degree, but they require an additional skill or experience that's necessary to get into those positions. And so that work is ongoing. A lot of it is creating specific special partnerships with some schools. I'll give you an example around advanced manufacturing and the Bellwether District in Bartram as an example. You know, some of these are going to be like one-off experiences, and not one-off meaning that it's, you know, just one time, but that it's this specific school for this location because they may be close in location. And so we're looking at all of those opportunities, really realigning the CTE programs. We have over 130 total, and we have only 4 schools now that look very different years ago. And so we're figuring out how we can realign some of the programs and work with the Pennsylvania Department of Education to quickly have those programs come online, because usually it takes 2 to 3 years to get the full approval. But I had spoken with Governor Shapiro about this, and he told us that we will have the full strength of PD to help us get those programs up and running as quickly as possible. And so we're working on that now. And I am also working on a police science CTE program because we have to get young people in the pipeline to that type of service in our city, because we are just down so many people. And we are figuring out how to put a civilian level position in between when you're finished, I'll say explorers as an example, and or the CTE program. And before you can technically apply for PPD, there's an interim period of a couple years. And so we have to work on creating a civilian position. So we're doing all of that, and we've been in contact and touch with all the folks, and we'll see it through to fruition. But that work around life sciences will be ongoing because we know we have a real burgeoning field here in Philadelphia, and we have to capitalize on an opportunity. And the only way the companies will continue to come is if we have the talent here for them to tap. And so that's what we're working on, is to have that feeder pipeline of talent available for each of those companies. And it really does create the opportunity for folks to get into the middle class, which does help our tax base. And I'll continue to work on additional reductions around our city wage tax and our overall business tax reductions, because I do think that is also helpful to creating an environment that will help us attract as many businesses as possible.
No, that's great. Those workers in 5 to 10 years will be the future homeowners and buyers here in the city of Philadelphia, and in this space, it's welcome. And to your point, in some of those certificate programs where you're right, you can get a certificate, earn a $60,000 income, and there could probably be a relationship with CCP, Community College of Philadelphia, to partner with some of those life science institutes to provide that. So where the degree isn't needed, certificate will allow them to go out and make a living wage job. So thank you for paying that a lot of attention and focus on that, because that future homeowners here in the city, they need it. You talked on public safety. I like to ask about one of the things that I see from my lens of being boots on the ground in the pockets in the city of Philadelphia. I'm born and raised in South Philadelphia as well, so I like it a little bit more now that you're a South Philly person there. There's a tremendous amount of redevelopment, new construction going out throughout the city, and one of the things that happened is some of those recreation centers have closed. What are your thoughts, and how do you see, when we talk public safety, how do you see opening and staffing those shuttered recreation centers playing a role in public safety? I mean, those young folks need a place to play after school weekends. 20 years, 30 years ago, you could play basketball, you can go to PAL, play checkers, do your homework and things like that. And when we talk public safety space, can you kind of give your opinion and assessment on the city opening and staffing those recreation centers year round so that we can provide safe, clean play area for the young folks here in the city?
Yes, well, I'll start there and just want to mention a few other things as well. But I think it is important to provide safe, clean spaces for our young people to access. I know even in my community in Winfield, we don't have a recreation center. We never have. And we've always had a cultural center as an example. And so we need to ensure that all of those locations are open and fully staffed. And that goes back to the workforce crisis we're facing and why we're trying very hard to recruit as many people back to civil service and to city service as possible, because we are down so many people. And so having that workforce in place will help us keep those recreation centers and cultural centers open. I'll give you an example. The one in my community right now, we're desperately looking for someone to work at the cultural center to keep it open, because we've had to close early every day for the last several weeks because we lost a person. And so that work will continue to be important. But in addition to providing safe, clean spaces for young people and ensuring that our communities are clean and well lit and that they are receiving good quality service from the city, I do think we're at a moment. We are at a moment in Philadelphia where we have to take inventory of where we are. And we can no longer play with anyone, whether they are young or old, who is intent on committing crime in this city. And, we understand that we have a lot of challenges, and we understand that most people are good law-abiding citizens, right, but those who aren't, they need to be dealt with. And absolutely, that is where we are. Okay. And I say that not just as a mother and as a parent, but from someone who was also impacted. People think that we're not impacted by any of this, who was also impacted by someone smashing and grabbing my vehicle 2 weeks ago and stealing everything from me. And so, we are also impacted by this, and we have to send a message that not only are the people who are here that it won't be tolerated, but for those who come from outside of the city to wreak havoc in this city and think there will be no consequences, those people have to be dealt with. Those young people that they found who murdered that cop, they weren't even from Philadelphia.
Right.
And so we have to send a message to folks that it will not be tolerated in this city and that we won't have it. Because a lot of this too is communication and showing it on the ground. Now that folks know that the marshals are here and that they will come get you, and that other additional law enforcement entities are here, we are seeing a difference. And that's the kind of stuff that needs to continue to happen and take place, in addition to investing in and providing good quality service and places for our young people and our citizens to partake in.
Thank you for sharing that. We're coming up on the hour, and before we go, I'd like to close out with two more questions, and then we'll open it up to the panel for some questions, and then just be respectful of everyone's time and yours as well. I know you brought some legislation and helped Registra Wills Gordon, I believe, with the tangled title issues here in the city of Philadelphia. Can you talk about how that's going, how it's been measured, and what will you and the administration continue to do to help provide those services across the communities that really need it the most? So I'd like to kind of hear your perspective on that, if you will. Thank you.
Sure. Well, really quickly, I was able to pass legislation around ensuring that all families receive information on how to avoid tangled titles upon death of a loved one. And so basically the bill would require that funeral home directors share this information sheet with their clients about probating estates and how to avoid tangled titles and where to get assistance. In addition to that, we invested about $7.6 million through the Neighborhood Preservation Initiative to help families who are currently suffering with tangled titles and want to gain actual ownership of their family property and or home. And I only did this because it's something that I personally went through while I was working in city council. My dad died in 2012. My grandmother, who lived with us, died in 2015, and my mother died 9 months later in 2016. And here we are, my sister and I, in our very early 30s, left with 2 houses in Winfield, both that had mortgages, and one that I shared a property line with St. Joe's University. So you can only imagine, it's right off of City Avenue. And we were left with this and had to deal with this. And it was very difficult. And for years, I paid 3 mortgages for years because I was even frightened to contact the mortgage company to say that, my parents had passed away, because I was trying to keep my sister and her family house in the one house. And then my parents had a long-term tenant who had been there for 20 years, living in the other house. And so, and literally paying $600 for a 3-bedroom house in Winfield. Like they just never changed the rent. So, I was left with all of this. And I had to figure it out. And it was very taxing. It cost a lot of money to be the executor of their estate and have to purchase the homes from the estate. I had to get the houses in order to purchase them, and then became a landlord overnight. And so it was a learning experience, but I knew from that experience we had to really quadruple the amount of dollars that we were extending to helping people preserve their family homes, because not only does it help from a generational wealth perspective, but it also helps around preserving our naturally occurring affordable housing in the city. So many people don't realize that a number of these rental properties, they're naturally occurring affordable units. This is not something that has been created by government, but created naturally by the market. And so we want to help with the preservation of that as well. And so we've increased that funding, and we're trying to help the more than 10,000 families across the city that we can document who are suffering with a tangled title or deed. And we're going to continue to do that work. And I applaud the work that Tracy Gordon and her team has done seeking to help families as well.
No, thank you for sharing that. And we here at GPAR, if you need our help and assistance in that, please feel free to reach out. Before I let you go, I'll give you a minute to talk about how we at GPAR here in the real estate community can help you going forward. So if you want to, speak to that, please do. You have the floor.
Yeah, so really quickly, I'll take you up on that offer. It's only mandated in the bill that the funeral home directors share the information sheet, but we can also share the information sheet with you. I think Taylor linked it in the chat. And you can feel free to share that with your clients and with people you are working with so that it can help them as well. We've actually had a couple realtors, I think one in North Philly, work with a family to help them preserve one of the brownstones on Diamond Street, which was a real victory because we had worked with this family for a long time. So that was wonderful. So if you could just share the information, at your leisure and when you can, that's helpful. And then finally, I will say, particularly from the perspective of being a member of the Housing Committee this last term, and you all know that there was a lot of legislation coming through that committee, particularly during the pandemic and beyond. It would be helpful to get your input and or feedback when we have legislation that impacts your industry in any way. And like I said, I'm on Housing Committee this term. I don't know, where I'll be next term, but it would be helpful to have your feedback and or your input on any legislation that impacts your industry, but specifically legislation that comes through the Housing Committee. And to have it early and to have your advocacy and to have you all, participate as a part of our hearing process and hopefully every step of the way after that.
We're a resource and we're more than happy, and it's our pleasure to help you. So we'll definitely stay tuned and be in touch with Taylor and your staff going forward to help provide guidance in any way we can. And thank you. And good luck next month. Let's get you reelected. And on that note, we're going to open it up to the floor. Matt, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, and we'll get some of these questions in and be respectful of the time and space here. Councilwoman Richardson, thank you again for spending this morning with us. We appreciate your time. We're going to spin it over to Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roderick. Okay, so I had two messages sent to me, one regarding sprinklers and the other about rent control. So first, sprinklers. Have you taken a position on Councilman Squilla's sprinkler retrofit legislation?
Right. I was an original co-sponsor of that legislation. I've spoken recently with Councilmember Squilla regarding the legislation, and he told me that he's looking at tax credits and some type of subsidy to help with offsetting the costs. And I think there's an issue around the 2021 code and there being this change being forthcoming in that code, but it could take like years to be implemented here because we just adopted I think we just adopted 2018's version. And so at any rate, the conversations continue. They're looking at potential amendments and ways to offset the cost, but nothing has happened as of yet. And there are no amendments to share. And I spoke with him directly regarding that.
Do you think that that's going to have a hearing before this term is over, or is this going to get punted into the next term?
I can't say. It's hard to say because I'm not intimately involved in those conversations, but I do speak with my colleague on a regular basis, and I just spoke with him at latest this morning. And so there's no amendments to share as of now. And as of now, everything that I see on the calendar, I don't see a hearing schedule for that legislation. So if I know something different or find out something different, then I'll definitely share it with you. But as of now, that's where they are.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that feedback on that issue. And then the last thing I just spoke of rent control, something that, our members oftentimes are in the rental space, particularly residential rental properties.
Right.
And it seems like it's an issue that gets kicked around a lot, particularly this year with elections and whatnot. So do you have any kind of position on rent control, or what are your thoughts about that issue?
Sure. Well, I applaud those who are seeking to look for ways to ensure that we are keeping our residential rental stock affordable. However, I am opposed to rent control. I do think that it would negatively impact our naturally occurring affordable housing stock in the city of Philadelphia. And I say that not just as someone who has been a member of the Housing Committee and has had the opportunity to read a number of reports and data about sort of where the Philadelphia market is in process. But I also say that as someone now with the experience of being a landlord and seeking to preserve affordable housing, I make $0 on this rental unit that was left to me for my family. But it is important to me to help, keep the naturally occurring affordable housing stock available in the city. And so I keep it going, particularly because she's been there 23 years. And so I understand now much more intimately how difficult it is to, I guess, be a business owner, right? And also be a landlord. And I try to keep that in mind in all the decisions that we make.
All right, so we're going to wrap up with one last question from our Government Affairs Director. Brittany, if you could jump on real quick.
Yeah. So hello, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Good to see you again. Earlier, I want to say it was in the spring, City Council passed a resolution to basically require utilities to do some outreach and communication to consumers about energy efficiency and cost savings. What was the thought process behind that? And has City Council worked with the utility companies on, getting any sort of updates about what they're doing to provide more clarification on sustainability, energy savings, like things like that to consumers?
Right. And so can you you said it was a resolution or a bill? I didn't.
Yeah, I think it was a resolution. I think you had sponsored on behalf of Clark. Yeah.
Right. And that's through it's the overarching work that he has done through Philadelphia Energy Authority and ensuring that consumers, have additional information about the energy usage of residential properties. And so I'll get an update on where that is in process because I do not know offhand. I have so many bills that I'm trying to finish before December 14th.
Hey, Councilwoman.
Eliza's here.
Eliza.
Eliza has it.
Hey. Hey, everyone. Sorry. I'm Councilmember Gilmore Richardson, Legislative Director. I believe those were resolutions that were asking for kind of like partnership and evaluation. I don't believe there was any direct specific action. I will hop on Legistar and drop them in the chat. But I haven't heard of any additional next steps at this time, but I'm happy to follow up with Council President's team on that.
Yeah, obviously energy efficiency, cost savings, things like that. Some of those questions we, our members encounter quite regularly from consumers, buyers, sellers, things like that. So if there's any way that, GPAR can provide some assistance or resources in that space, we'd love to, help out.
No, and we appreciate that. I don't know where Eliza's going to find out. I don't know where that one is in process, and I haven't seen anything come up. And typically something like that would come to my committee. And so we have a committee hearing scheduled actually this week. That'll probably be one of the last ones before the end of the term. And so we'll find out, but I don't know exactly where that one is in process. Okay.
I'll chat with Eliza
on behalf. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you, Brittany.
All right, great. Thank you, Councilwoman. We really appreciate you spending some of your Tuesday morning with us. GPAR members, thank you so much. President Roderick, Brittany, everyone. Have a great day. Go Phils.
Go
And
Phils.
remember,
Thanks,
tomorrow,
everyone.
Got our workshop tomorrow. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you for
Bye.
the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good day.